Hello, I'm Ryan Stevenson, head of E-FWD and Energy Voice, and I'm here today with Aine Mishra from EY to talk about E-FWD. Aine, could you tell us a bit about your role at EY and why you're so interested in skills?
So thank you very much for having me today. And I guess, so for starters, my background, I've been in the industry, I've worked in the industry, and now in EY, we work with a lot of clients also in the industry, and we see what's going on. And myself and my colleagues were really passionate about seeing a just and fair transition. And we have this opportunity to see a variety of different projects that are ongoing, different challenges that our clients are facing. And so for me, personally, I sit first of all within people consulting as a change management consultant. I'm very people-centric by nature, and I'm really passionate about the workforce within the industry and the communities that we impact. So the last one about skills was a really hot topic for me. It's a topic that it's talked about a lot, and I think there's a lot of interest and passion around it. There's just not as much, I would say, strategic execution of how do we really move forward with the challenges that we're facing. And when we were in the tent, there was a couple of things that came out. There was one, we came out with this really fantastic list of action items that we could move forward with. But there was one question I think there was two actually that came to me that were sort of left unanswered. And the two are, one, who owns it? Because it's wonderful to have a list of actions, but who actually is going to take that forward? And at the moment, there's this sort of feeling that it's everybody else's responsibility. We're waiting on the government, we're waiting on politicians, and now we're waiting on policymakers, and it's sort of everybody else's responsibility to be able for us to move forward. So then, whilst it's great to have these sort of lists of to-do lists, they're not going to get done if there's not an owner, so to speak. But the other piece behind it is, and I still feel from the skills and the wider people agenda within the energy transition we haven't really gotten to the problem statement. And I think that's the biggest issue is, skills is a really broad topic, and it covers a lot of different areas. It's complex, but it also delves into, and this is the part that I find extremely fascinating personally, is into what I would call the EQ side of the energy transition. So the EQ is the emotional intelligence side. And when you're talking about the emotional intelligence, you're talking about people, you're talking about leaders, inspiring, innovation, creativity, all these pieces that we need in the energy transition. But we focus on the more so-called tangible, which is the IQ side, the intelligence side. And you're looking at that more from, well, what sort of solutions do we need to be able to achieve net zero? And whilst we need the technologies and we need the engineering behind it, we also need the people. We're not going to come up with those solutions, right? And so that's, for me, I think that the biggest crux of it is when you look at the skills, the skills challenge we have long term is we're looking at how do we attract, how do we retain, how do we bring in the best and the brightest, right? And to be able to do that, what we need to do is look at what's our purpose, what's our vision, how vulnerable are we willing to be as an industry to say, we don't really know what we're doing because it's all new, right? We've never done this before, so how do we come together and find solutions and work as an inclusive and diverse team? These are really big challenges that we have. That's kind of where I come out at for the last session. And there's still a lot of great topics, great conversations, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions, I would say.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just going back to the first point that you raised there, the first question you asked, who owns it? I would put back to you, who does own it or who should own it?
First of all, I think it goes in different stages. I don't think it's any one person or any one body or any one organization. I do think it's a collective, first of all, on us as an industry, and that's across the energy industry, to focus more on what we have in common rather than what we sort of have as differences. So for example, you've got the traditional oil and gas industry, and now you're moving into renewable industries. It's trying to focus on what we have in common between us rather than that divisiveness, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to move towards the same and solve the same energy trilemma situation that we have, right? So I feel like for me, it starts with, first of all, each individual, each organization, and each body and identity that works within the industry. Is we need to stop pointing fingers at what everybody else is not doing right, and we need to start looking inwards, and what we need to do. And this is partially within organizations as well, I think, and more broadly, is we need a cultural reset. Because one of the problems we have right now is we're not able to attract the skills and the talent because people don't want to work in an industry because it doesn't align with their vision, it doesn't align with their purposes, it doesn't They're worried about job security. They're worried about, you know, the volatility and forgotten the word, but how cyclical is that? Thank you. Yeah. How cyclical the industry is. So in order to solve all of this, it does take individuals and as a collective, as an industry, for us to come back and say, you know, this is not really working. Otherwise, we're not going to attract that talent, and we're going to actually also lose a lot of the skills that we do have already, and they're going to go out and find jobs in other industries and not come back as well. So that's a long-term problem that we really do see. Yeah,
and do you think, just going back to your second question or the point you made before about EQ, you were talking about, you know, with the workforce as it is, the Gen Z workforce coming into play, they really do put forward questions about purpose and impact, and they need clarity around why they're doing a certain job. You know, it's our job in the industry to convey why it is good to get into the energy sector, why it's a good job. Going back to that point about EQ, you were talking about the industry needing really inspiring leaders to step forward, maybe be a bit vulnerable. You know, the oil and gas industry isn't maybe known for vulnerability.
No, we're
so
not.
Have you got any good examples of leaders in the sector or people who you think might rise up into those kind of positions and take it forward?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any particular person who's going to rise up to it. I do think there are leaders in the industry. It's not to say that there are not. I think it's about more showcasing and pointing to them and them having more airtime than focusing on the negatives. Because if we keep focusing on what's not working, that's all we're going to notice, and that's what everybody out with the industry is also going to notice, rather than saying, do you know what, we've not done it right. We're going to be honest. We could have done it better. We're trying to find a new way forward. Come with us and help us, rather than sort of just, you know, throwing stones. Let's work together and find a solution. Because at the end of the day, there isn't a single person in this country who doesn't need energy.
Yeah.
It's needed by everybody, right? So what we need to look at is, well, how do you bring them with you on the journey? So one of the things as well we say, you know, in EY is as you look at the energy transition, this, for starters, in my opinion, is the energy transition is a large-scale change management project, right? And we're trying to go through at a very fast pace. And so we've done this at EY, this fantastic research paper with Oxford University, and it's called Humans at the Centre. And what it looked at is said, we've got all these, you know, change management, transformation projects globally. And when they looked at them, they said there's only about a 28% success rate. And when they flipped it and they put humans at the center, and that means putting people at the front and center of your change management, it goes to 73% success rate. Wow. That's a huge number, right? So if you translate that into the energy transition, what you're looking at is you want to bring the people who exist within it, the people who are in the communities who surround us, and everybody else to come along with us. We need to start looking at this from a very human-centric, you know, solution, rather than just looking at the practicalities. And we moved from that 28% to that 73% success rate, because it's huge. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Right? But we need to look at the EQ side. We need to start understanding that being vulnerable is actually the birthplace of where we're going to get all the innovations and the creativity and how we're going to succeed in this basically large-scale change management project.